Is charged in the bribery scheme that involves some of the country's most prestigious universities. Jackie Heinrich live outside federal court in Boston. Jackie, good morning.
Good morning. On today's docket, no parents, but test administrators and coaches who allegedly accepted bribes from wealthy families to get those kids into elite schools. The man at the center of it all, William Singer, has already pleaded guilty. Federal prosecutors say he ran a fake charity that acted as a side door into college by paying people off to cheat the admissions process. Some people he allegedly bribed are making their first appearances, and among them, legendary USC water polo coach Jovan Vavic, who led the team to NCAA championships. He was fired by the school after he was arrested in Hawaii at a hotel and is expected to enter a plea today. Wake Forest head volleyball coach William Ferguson will also appear. He allegedly accepted $100,000 from Singer to put a client's daughter on the women's volleyball team in order to get her into the university. And defense experts say because this scandal involves wealthy people, hefty fines and probation may not be a strong enough sentence to send a message, and the judge might want to make an example out of this case.
In the end, I think the district court judges are going to want to send a message that this is not going to be tolerated in the future. There's going to be a respect for the law. And when I say respect for the law, I mean that many of these parents are going to have to serve some kind of jail time so it doesn't look like the courts are bending over backwards for wealthy parents.
Defense experts say because people are going to be cooperating with prosecutors, we may see more people named in this case and additional charges come down. Sandra.
We will continue to watch it. Jackie Heinrich, thank you.
Story that is. Also, there's a new battle brewing on the Mueller matter. Andy McCarthy will tell us what the Barr summary means. And then our headliner, House Judiciary Committee Chair member John Wright.
That hit a home there. And ahead of Benjamin Netanyahu's White House visit next hour, we're going to have a lot more on this in just a moment for you. But first, brand new reaction coming in from the White House after Robert Mueller finds no collusion with Russia. And now President Trump is making it clear that the whole probe was an illegal takedown, in his words, and that he's been totally exonerated. Welcome to a brand new hour of America's Newsroom. I'm Sandra Smith.
Morning, Sandra. I'm Bill Hemmer. Good morning at home. Should Mueller's full report be made public? And if so, when is that decision made? Also, what new congressional investigations may be generated by the probe's aftermath? Some questions going forward. Sarah Sanders talked to us last hour and said the following here in our program.
The president has said he wants full transparency in this process. We absolutely know and have said for over 2.5 years there was no collusion. Now Bob Mueller is also saying the same thing. I think the Democrats need to be really careful here. So far, what they're doing and what they're saying, they should be embarrassed by. They have said for 2 years, they have repeatedly and breathlessly attacked the president and perpetuated this malicious lie that the president was some sort of foreign agent and working with the Russian government in order to win the election.
Let's bring in former Assistant U.S. Attorney, Fox News contributor Andy McCarthy with us now. Andy, good morning to you. I think it's the first time we've had the opportunity to speak with you since the news of yesterday. What do you think?
Well, I think it's pretty much what those of us who've been closely watching this have expected. There was never a collusion case here. The only way they could have suggested that there was one was by continually moving the goalpost away from what the original rationale for the investigation was, which was Russia's hacking of the Democratic email accounts, as to which there was never an iota of proof other than the unverified Steele dossier, a Clinton campaign opposition research product. Other than that, there was never anything that suggested that there was Trump campaign involvement. And
investigation, Andy. 675 days this went on. 34 people, 3 companies indicted, 6 former Trump advisors, associates, 199 charges in total. Total spent over $25 million. But the result was no collusion. It doesn't seem, though, that Democrats are going to stop here. We just talked to Ed Rendell. He's saying there should be further investigations, Andy. So what grounds do they have to call for more?
Well, they've never had legal grounds, Sandra, but that hasn't backed anybody up from the beginning. You know, look, if you think about it, it's all well and good to say, great that Mueller came to the correct result in the end, what the law compelled. But the fact is, there was no rationale for having a special counsel in the first place here. There was never a factual basis for criminal investigation of the president articulated. There was no conflict of interest that would have prevented the Justice Department from investigating this in the normal course. Yet, because of political pressure, we had this 2-year investigation. So, since politics is the coin of the realm, it seems to me that there's no reason to suggest that there won't be more.
There's Rudy Giuliani, who quite a forceful interview earlier today. What he's talking about is the dirty dossier, the Steele dossier. Just listen to how he characterized the next phase of the story, Andy.
In this case, we have complete vindication. And the reality is, the question now is, if there was no evidence of collusion, 3 investigations, no evidence of collusion, who made it up? This had to come from somewhere.
Right.
It just didn't come out of thin air. I want to know who did it, who paid for it, who fueled it, because the person who did it and the group that did it knows it's untrue because they invented it.
I think this is a part of the story that the American people really have not followed. You know, he asks a very relevant question there.
Right.
Who made it up? And you think back now about James Comey coming to New York City in the depths of a January winter to meet with a president-elect at Trump Tower and give him the information that, hey, we've got this on you. And then he describes in his own words how he went out to his waiting black SUV on Fifth Avenue and went right to his laptop computer and took notes about what he told Trump and what Trump said in response. There is a striking lack of curiosity about how this dirty dossier ever came to be in the first place. And without it, we're probably nowhere near where we are today, 2 years down the road.
Yeah, and Bill, think about what Comey didn't tell the president. What they did was they gave the president a small snapshot of what was in this dossier, the P-tape, the salacious stuff. What didn't he tell the president? He didn't tell him, oh, and by the way, the dossier also alleges that you're involved in a massive conspiracy with Putin to undermine the election and to hack Democratic accounts. And I forgot to mention this to you, but we've been in the FISA court for 3 months getting surveillance warrants against people involved in your campaign on the theory that you're a Russian agent. Just wanted to mention that. I don't, you know, that's not the conversation that they had in January. And what to me is amazing is that they continued even after Trump was in office, January, April, June, to go back to the FISA court on the basis of this same information. And if you think about it, Mueller scrubbed this information very carefully in deciding that there was no collusion. Why didn't the FBI and the Justice Department try to verify it and corroborate it? And when they couldn't verify it, why didn't they refrain from going to the FISA court in the first place?
All relevant questions, yes. And perhaps the IG report is going to come out in May or June. Will answer a lot of that. But that appears to be the next leg in the story as we try to get to with Sarah Sanders last hour. Andy, thank you for your time. Andy McCarthy with us today.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Let's bring in America's Newsroom 18. Bill McKern, Main Street columnist for the Wall Street Journal, is here. Former chief speechwriter for George W. Bush and a Fox News contributor. Steve Hilton, host of The Next Revolution on the Fox News channel. And Marianne Marsh, former senior advisor to John Kerry. I feel like we should just go around the horn here. 10 o'clock Eastern Time hour on a Monday morning after we learned the results of this investigation. Bill, just get your thoughts.
Well, my thoughts is that the investigation, the letter was pretty clear. There's no evidence. I'd take what Andy said and go a little further. It's one thing for Democrats and pundits to make these accusations, but we had the leaders in our intelligence community. We had John Brennan out there talking about treason. We had James Clapper, saying he could see Trump being a Russian agent. Andrew McCabe said that recently. And now we know there's no evidence for it, except for maybe this. We should be calling it the Simpson dossier, by the way, not the Steele dossier. And there's no evidence. What does it say about our intelligence operations? I mean, the reason this narrative went as far as it did was not because Democrats embraced it or so forth. That's common in Washington. It's because it had the backing of some high intelligence officials. And in Miller, people are telling us there's no evidence for it after an exhaustive investigation.
Steve?
So let's look at the big story here. What do we know now that we didn't before? We know for sure the scope of the Russian effort, Putin's effort, to destabilize our democracy and to divide America. That's clear from the report. We also know that not only was there no collusion, there's a very important line in the Attorney General's letter. The special counsel not only didn't find collusion, it says, despite multiple offers from Russian-affiliated individuals to assist the Trump campaign. They tried to collude with the Trump campaign. The Trump campaign said no. But I'll tell you who did end up being an agent of Putin, an agent of Russia, in his effort to divide America and to destabilize our democracy. It's all these people who've been pushing this story. They're the ones who've been dividing America. Brennan and Clapper and Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell and MSNBC and CNN, they're the real agents of Putin.
Marianne?
Politics abhors a vacuum, and Bill Barr filled that yesterday when he exploited Mueller's decision not to indict Donald Trump, even if he had the evidence and the kitchen sink, because that is the policy of the Department of Justice. So it is clear the Mueller report, which we have not seen, no one here or anyone else has seen it, which Bill Barr used to exonerate Trump, has to go through it and decided to take all the evidence he gathered, put it all together and says high crimes and misdemeanors versus a legal standard that no one can meet because no one can indict the sitting president. It's now up to Congress to get the Mueller report. We should all see it, and they need to go through it, every end of it, to determine what Russia did to interfere with our election, what role Trump played in it, and what he knew or didn't know about it.
I think we know the answer
but why? There's no doubt. There's no doubt about collusion. It's another example of how the Democrats just want to keep pushing this story, regardless of the facts, regardless of the evidence.
Marianne,
the facts that the special counsel found there was no collusion.
Do you accept what Bill Barr summarized yesterday?
That's Bill Barr's opinion.
Do you accept it or not?
I want to see the Mueller report.
So that's a no.
That's not correct. I just think it's very important
you quoted
to be
the half
accurate.
sentence of Mueller's that's in there. Hold on, you have a show, buddy. Hold on.
But what you said was false.
And the fact is, we deserve to see the Mueller report, not Bill Barr's version of it.
I asked you a question, you said no. Okay, Steve, go.
The reason that what we just heard was false is because there is no doubt in the judgment about the no collusion was not an opinion of Bill Barr. That was the conclusion of the special counsel. What I think you're talking about, because it says here, the special counsel did not find that the Trump campaign. You think he's lying? You think Bill Barr's lying about what Robert Mueller said?
Put it all out.
Why can't you just give up on this ridiculous manufactured
so you're
story
going with the idea
and focus on what the American
Bill
people
Barr is
want
a
to deal
political
with?
appointee. Let's throw this up here and remind everybody exactly who he is. Attorney General, he served from 1991 to 1993 under President George H.W. Bush. He was approved as the current Attorney General in February, 54 to 45. Good relationship with Robert Mueller. That case was made throughout this time. Said he was committed to transparency. In his confirmation hearings, he was committed to full transparencies, Marianne, and would not allow the White House to edit this report. So do you not have faith in him, William Barr, as an attorney? That's what, as an Attorney General, is that what?
Here's what I know. He wrote a 19-page memo a year ago outlining almost the outcome yesterday that turned into a 3-page letter.
Let Bill react to that.
We deserve the facts.
Yeah, I'd see Marianne's report to Congress and raise her one. I'm for as much transparency as we could have, and the Congress is the representatives of the people. Let them see it, but let's have it all out there.
Yes,
I want to see the FISA warrant.
Yes, let's.
But that was not the Democrats' reaction.
It's mine.
When we saw the FISA warrants, what they used for that. Let's see Rod Rosenstein's letter. The second letter. Let's see it all, and let's. I think Democrats have to be careful what they wish for, because right now it looks like the only man in the government that's going to be indicted for any of this stuff is Andrew McCabe. And there are 3 other IG reports coming out, one on the FBI agents taking gifts, one on DOJ leaks, and one on the FISA warrant. Let's see where that goes. Because I think these are, if there's no evidence, that's the one thing. If Bill Barr's right, there's no evidence for collusion. How did these guys open investigations, and how did they justify these warrants?
This is so
these
relevant.
These are big
so
questions.
Relevant. Yeah.
Right?
And I think you will hear commentary on this network about that. Right. I imagine some others will have very short memories.
Let me add this, too, about the Democrats going on in that. People complain, okay, Democrats are not letting it rest. They're looking to impeach. The truth is, I agree with Andy, there shouldn't have been a special counsel in the first place. The proper way to remove a president is through the House Judiciary Committee. And one reason is Democrats now have to weigh, do we go down here and possibly dissipate our electoral vibrancy in 2020. Obviously, Mrs. Pelosi has some concerns about that. That's a political calculation that they have to make. And that's the way it should be. Andrew McCabe didn't have to make any political calculation when he sneakily opened an investigation, and these other guys, and the special counsel is sort of immune from all this. Our system is based on accountability. We have procedures for removing it. So let the Democrats, if they want to go down the impeachment, let them do it and let them pay the consequences.
Just quickly want to connect Bill's point about the Democrats and the politics with his earlier point about the intelligence agencies and so on. What connects them is that this establishment point of view has been driving all this, which is a complete refusal to accept the result of the 2016 election, that the American people actually sent a disruptive outsider who questions everything the establishment has been doing into the Oval Office. They cannot accept that result, and ever since then they've been trying to overturn it.
Here's the relevant point on page 2, as the report says. This is the Barr summary with Rosenstein and the others who wrote at DOJ over the weekend. As the report states, quoting now from the Mueller report, the investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government's election interference activities. When Jake Gibson, our producer, was reading that by telephone yesterday afternoon, that was the slam dunk in the spirit of March Madness that the Trump team has been talking about for 2 years. Final comment.
3 points. I agree with everything Bill said about putting everything out and the FISA warrants, because I've always wanted to know why Devin Nunes went running to the White House in the middle of the night after he saw something in pickup surveillance, number one. Number two, the dossier, that started and funded by a guy named Paul Singer, a Republican fundraiser who now is raising money for Donald Trump. And it started with Jeb Bush and then Marco Rubio. That's where it started. Last but not least, it is the responsibility of the Congress to do oversight. We deserve, the country deserves, America deserves every single bit of that report, including every paragraph and period, and let everyone decide.
Marion, how do you respond to members of your own party, Adam Schiff, Senator Blumenthal, and others, who all along this process, they wanted it to play out, but at the same time they said they had evidence. They knew of evidence that this president colluded with Russia to win the election. What do you do or say now to those Democrats?
I think two things. One, Mueller's charge was to examine the role of Russia in the 2016 election and Trump's role in it. We still do not know what happened.
So you don't accept the findings of the report?
No. What I want to see is the report, because we have done nothing in this country to address our election system and stopping the Russians for doing whatever it is they did in the next election in 2020.
So
that's
the conclusion
the problem
with this conversation, that the merry-go-round is going to go round and round. Marianne, thank you. Steve, thank you. Bill, thank you.
Thank you.
Here today. Fox News Alert now. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu arriving at the White House moments from now. We'll see him next hour. He's saying that he will cut his trip short after a rocket attack hit a home northeast of Tel Aviv, injuring 7 people there. This is the Vice President. Mike Pence in a moment gets ready to speak at the AIPAC conference in Washington. We are just getting word that he and the president will make an announcement today in his decision to recognize the Golan Heights as part of Israel. Kevin Cork's watching all that. North Lawn, the White House now. Hey, Kevin, good morning.
Good morning, my friend. Unfortunately, this is somewhat par for the course. You'll have a domestic incident that cuts short a trip abroad. It happens for heads of state all the time. We've obviously seen it play out here domestically. And unfortunately for the Israelis, Bill, this is playing out in real time in their country, as Bibi Netanyahu will now make his way back to Israel after shortening his trip here to the U.S. thanks to a rocket attack. We're talking about rockets that were fired into central Israel, just north of Tel Aviv. Several Israelis were injured in the process. So we do know from the Prime Minister that he will head back to Israel immediately after meeting with the president today, instead of sticking around for the events tonight and tomorrow. He called that rocket assault, by the way, a criminal attack on the state of Israel, adding, "We will respond forcefully." So while the president and the Israeli leader will meet for a little bit more than an hour, they're saying about 70 minutes, give or take, later this morning, there is no photo op scheduled for the Oval Office meeting. We'll see if that changes. This is the 7th time these two gentlemen are meeting. Now, I should also point this out, Bill. That rocket attack means the Prime Minister will miss making a pivotal address at the APEC conference, but many from the Trump administration will be speaking there, most notably the Vice President of the United States. And of course, we'll bring you that live coverage here on Fox News Channel within the hour. Also at this hour, the White House is preparing for Netanyahu's arrival, and we will see if he decides to take a slight left turn from the South Portico to address reporters. That would certainly be our preference. We'll keep an eye on that for you. There are a number of crucial security discussions that need to be had between U.S. and Israeli officials, including critical shared intelligence bill on the war on terror. That plus the Golan Heights announcement, which we're not sure what form that will take, according to my colleague John Roberts. We'll keep an eye on that for you. But for now, back to you.
Good stuff, Kevin. Kevin Corke from the White House. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. And back to our top story. Democrats vying for their party's nomination, saying the Mueller report is not exonerating President Trump for the obstruction of justice charges. And they're using this as a campaign issue now. Former DNC chairwoman Donna Brazile will join us live just ahead with her take.
Also, many in the Republican Party now calling for an investigation of how the Mueller probe got started in the first place. How did that happen? Will it get any traction? Texas Republican John Ratcliffe, member of the House Judiciary Committee, will explain all that coming up in a few moments right here.
Well, I do know that the biggest challenge and the biggest opportunity for Bill Barr is to restore the reputation of the Department of Justice and the FBI. And the only way he can possibly restore people's shaken faith and trust in those venerable institutions is accountability.
Nervous about the economy. That's down 4% from about a year ago. Same poll also shows a slight dip in those who are confident. Charles Payne is always confident. He is a man on a mission. He's making money. How you doing?
I'm good,
thanks.
See you,
sir. What are you seeing in this poll here, Charles?
You know, these kind of polls are difficult. There are two I use, though, to inform my investing decisions. One's from the Conference Board. The other one is from the Michigan University. They've been doing it longer, and they really break it down to, because, for instance, this poll sort of echoes what they found recently, but with the Michigan sentiment number, for instance, the bottom 2/3 of income, household incomes, their confidence soared. I'm talking through the roof. And those are the kind of nuances that I'm looking for because, you know, we know the consumer is 2/3 of the economy, but I think that also is a reflection of the fact that we've had 7 months in a row where blue-collar wages have been up more than 3%. You got to go back more than a decade since that last time that happened. So, you know, that's what I'm really looking for. The idea that people are anxious, we're always sort of anxious no matter what for a variety of reasons, but the underlying confidence really is phenomenal.
That's feeding into the president's overall approval rating on his handling of the economy. Right now, 50% approved. This is for February. 50% approved versus 49% in January. Pretty much the same as it was a year ago. But still, the president holding strong at that level.
He is holding strong. You know, there are times I really wonder why that number isn't higher. And you know, but it is what it is. Even when people who weren't working have a job, even when people who were stuck at low wages are starting to get raises, sometimes you put a clipboard in front of them or you give them an unsolicited cell phone call. You know, they get a little bit more cautious. But I think the bottom line, though, is that there are other things, right? Less what they call soft data, these surveys, and more hard data, like the fact that 1 million people have come back into the labor force in just the last 6 months, like the fact that wages are beginning to soar. Those kind of things ultimately, I think,
you
matter
were tweeting
more.
About that at 5 o'clock this morning. But 1 million Americans have what? They have found a job?
No, they've come back into the labor force. You know, really, the most important thing right now, I think, for our economy, and the Federal Reserve Chairman Jay Powell pointed this out last week, is that people have to come back to the labor force. We've got 7.6 million jobs out there, and there are people who have just simply given up on working. As more and more of those folks come back, it's almost self-fulfilling. You come back, you hit the bricks, you knock on some doors. Of course, you know, you fax out or tweet out or whatever you got to do, email your resume, whatever it is, get back into the system because the jobs are there. And because the jobs are there, they're there for you to take. And listen, by the way, more people are quitting their jobs, which is a great sign because they're confident that they'll get a better job.
Good stuff. Continue to reflect a robust economy.
Yeah.
Charles Payne.
While the rest of the economy is why the market's down, because the rest of the world's economy, we're kind of concerned whether that washes up on our shores.
A little bit of a sell-off today, following up on that sell-off Friday. Charles, we'll see you later. Thank you. Will there be an investigation into the investigation? President Trump wasting no time urging Congress to look at how the Russia probe started in the first place. So will lawmakers act on this? We're going to ask our headliner, Judiciary Committee member Congressman John Ratcliffe will join us next.
And hopefully somebody's going to look at the other side. This was an illegal takedown that failed. And hopefully somebody's going to be looking at the other side.
Here's an unfortunate fact that applies to most financial advisors. They're not legally required to act in your best interest. Creative planning is different. Our certified financial planner practitioner